Okay, so we're just gonna get started talking about the P5 interface. I'm gonna turn on the light theme for a second so it'll look like what you guys most likely see at this point. If you've never used P5 before, that's good because I'm gonna go over the basics. If you've used it before, that's also good. You've seen it a little bit before. We are gonna kind of cover it from scratch. But P5 is basically just a web programming environment. It's specifically geared sort of towards art and design, but using programming. So it's kind of similar to Scratch in the sense that it was designed to be used for a specific purpose. Scratch is used for creating interactive projects and for learning programming concepts. And P5 is kind of the same way, but it's a little bit more advanced in the sense that we're going to be actually writing code, like in text, and we're going to be creating a project from scratch. There's nothing kind of built in the way that Scratch has built-in programming blocks. So there's a lot of the same concepts, but we're actually going to be writing everything out. So we're going to be writing our code in a more traditional style. P5 does provide us with a lot of sort of like nice little helper functions that do things for us, like draw shapes and colors. So we don't have to like get really sort of bare bones and like actually tell the computer what colors to draw and stuff like that. But we are going to be writing everything in the text editor. So the P5 interface is relatively simple. It's called, what this is called is a IDE, or Integrated Development Environment, which means that the code and the thing that the code produces are in the same place. So when we write some code, we hit this play button and it shows us what it looks like over here. So that's a nice aspect of using the website. There's also a little console down here, which we'll go over how to use as we learn some programming stuff. The console is not something that people see when they're using a website. The console is for developers to see errors and other things while they're coding. So we'll go over that as well. And then this area is kind of just like our text editor. You guys have all done like some HTML and CSS before. So this is a website. If you open up this little sidebar right here, you can see the files that make up the website. There's one very simple HTML file that doesn't really do all that much. Most of what it does is it just connects our HTML page to our JavaScript program that we're going to write, which is this line of HTML right here, where it says source equals sketch.js. That's this file, which is the main file that we're going to be using to create our program. It's called sketch.js because in P5, they like to think of our program as sketching, like you're sketching in a notebook. Again, it's geared towards art and design. And then we have a really, really simple style sheet that just kind of sets up the canvas, which is the main part of our program, is the canvas element that we're drawing graphics on. So everything we're doing is geared towards drawing graphics. So let's go over a couple more parts of the interface before we start writing some code. So there's a file section right here. You can create a new project, you can save the current project, you can open an existing project, and you can look at examples from the other P5 projects. So if you look at examples, there's a ton of stuff in here. So it's really useful to kind of see the different things you can do with P5, and you can make copies of these examples and modify them and turn them into your own code. So there's a lot of cool stuff in there that you can look for. Once you save the project, so you can actually name the project here. If you click on this, we'll just name this P5 intro. If you save this project, then the file options change a little bit. We have some more options here now. We can duplicate the project, so we can make a copy of the project and then make different changes to it. You can also duplicate other people's projects. So if I save a sketch and then I link to it on the class notes, you guys can open it up and make a copy in your own account and then add code to it. You can share the project. There's a few different links there. And you can download the files for the project. And then you can also add it to a collection that's kind of like a folder with all the projects in it. So I'm gonna make a collection. I think I've actually, let's see. How do I make a new collection? Maybe I just type it in here, MMP 100, or 210 rather. I think I have to go here and then, okay, I have to go to open, go to collections, and then create a collection. So this will be MMP 210, fall 2024. I'll create that, and then I'll add the sketch there. Okay. So I'll put a link to this collection as well, so you'll see all the sketches that I'll create as examples. So that's the file menu, pretty straightforward. Edit just has a couple simple things. Tidy code is really, really useful. If you're writing a lot of code, sometimes you won't have the right indentations, or you'll be missing stuff. You can just go to File or Edit Tidy Code. So for example, our code is supposed to be indented like this, and you might forget to do that, or have it something like that. And if you go to Edit and Tidy, it's gonna line up all the code nice and tidy. If you're missing characters, like if I have something like this and I try to tidy code, it's not really gonna work. So that'll kind of show you, okay, maybe I'm missing some characters. And we'll go over, how to write the code in a minute. There's also find and replace, just like you have in, text editor. Under the sketch menu, this is like the run and stop buttons, which are the same thing as here. You can add a file and a folder, which is, you can add stuff over here, which we're not going to do today. We may do that in a future lesson. And then under the help section, there's a couple useful things. There's some keyboard shortcuts, which can be useful to do different things in your code or with the editor. The one I use the most is this Command Enter. On Mac, it's probably Control Enter on Windows, will start the sketch. So instead of having to click on the big play button, you can just hit Command Enter and it'll run your sketch. So that saves a lot of time. There's also a reference page. So this takes us to the P5 website, which shows us all the different things that we can use in P5. So we'll probably look at this more. But for example, if I wanted to draw a circle, I could type in circle here, and it'll show me in the reference, okay, there's a thing called the circle. And if I click on that, it'll show me an example with some code, and I can run the code, and it'll also describe how to write the circle and all the parameters and stuff. So all of the different functions in P5 are described with examples in the reference. So it's a really easy way to figure out how to make something, or if you see some code and you want to figure out, how it works, the reference is a really good resource for that. On the P5 website, there's a bunch of other resources. There's a bunch of tutorials that go over some of the basics of programming and drawing, design, all sorts of 3D stuff, all sorts of different stuff. There's also a bunch of examples, so just different things that you can do with P5 that might be fun to explore. And let's see, yeah. Those are kind of the main things you might want to look at. There's some community posts, but yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in here. So we'll look at the reference a lot as we add new parts to our code. And then there's just a little about page. Okay, so last part about the interface is the settings over here. I usually change the theme from light to high contrast. That just makes it easier to see on the projector, but you can choose whatever theme you want. I usually also increase the text size a little bit just to make it easier for you guys to read. Again, you don't have to do that. Couple other things, there's an auto save. I usually leave that on so I don't have to remember to save while I'm working. There's auto close brackets and quotes. This might not make sense right now, but basically what this means is when you're writing code, there's a lot of things that look like this, little parentheses or little brackets. And the default setting is if I write an open bracket, it closes it for me. So it adds this character at the end. If that is confusing, you can turn that off. And so now if I write that character, it's just by itself. We'll go over that in a second. So I usually leave that on. There's also an autocomplete hinter. I usually turn this off because I don't really want hints, but you may find it useful. So if you have that on, it's going to try to guess what you're trying to write. So if I type in F, you can see it's going to show me all the different functions that I might be trying to write. So if I'm trying to do, any one of these, it'll kind of help me. And, I can hit enter to accept the suggestion. So it's just like autocomplete anywhere. So I usually have that turned off, but you may find it useful to have it on when you're working. And then word wrap, I usually use on. If you turn it off, the code will go all the way out the side and it'll look bad. But yeah, those are all those options. There's also an accessibility menu where you can turn the line numbers on and off. There's a lint warning sound that you can turn on and off, and then there's some screen reader options that may be useful. But yeah, that's like the entire thing. So it's a very simple interface. It's really part of what I really like about it. There's a lot of different editors. If you've ever written any code before, you might have used like VS Code or Sublime Text or something like that. And those have lots and lots of different features. But to write code, we really don't need that many features to make something simple. So I like this as a very simple environment. I'm going to actually increase my text size a little bit more. And we're going to write a little bit of code and just get started. I'm going to stop this video and start another one just to kind of have a couple different parts.